ended up last time with a question that needs answer. So Shimon, in the end of class, I spoke to him and he said, I have an answer. I asked a simple question. There are two statements of Chazal, of the rabbis. Chazal stand for three words. Chachamenu zichronam livracha. Our sages, may their memory be blessed. Chazal. The Gaon of Vilna brought one statement that says, there is no reward in this world, and another statement that says, the reward of a mitzvah is the mitzvah. And I asked, is that a contradiction or not? Class yesterday did not really want to get into it. People said, no, it isn't. People said, well, I'm not playing. So finally Shimon said, it's so simple, it's a contradiction. Of course it's a contradiction. So let's assume it's a contradiction. Do you want to change your answer? Is that a fair statement of our conversation?
Looks like a contradiction.
If it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck, probably is a duck. The only reason, well, it is a duck. If it lays a goose egg, then it's not really a duck. Right? So if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck but lays a goose egg, it's not a duck. But here, we don't have a goose egg.
If a mitzvah connects you to the world to come, is that book right?
What?
Like if a mitzvah somehow connects you. So
The question is, there a reward in this world?
Yeah. So
Yeah?
the
But-
mitzvah being a reward, if it connects you to the world to come,
Well, the question is, what does it mean? First, you have to understand the first statement. There is no reward for a mitzvah in this world. There is no reward for doing a mitzvah in this world. The next statement says, the reward of the mitzvah is a mitzvah. The Gaon of Vilna explains, what does the second statement mean? When it says, schar mitzvah mitzvah, that the fact that the Kadosh Baruch Hu allowed you to perform the mitzvah, that is the reward. There is nothing else. That is, you have the mitzvah of learning Torah, the fact that that possibility exists for you, and you have the ability to, that is it. So if you say, okay, so that is a reward. It's not usually a reward you get for what? For what you do. So in a sense that an actual reward you don't get. But the only thing you do get is the fact that you were able to do a mitzvah, then that is enough.
Okay, if the reward of the mitzvah is not in this world,
Yeah.
it means that the mitzvah is not in this world, so the reward for a mitzvah can be a mitzvah. You know, maybe it's a bit playing with words, but...
Well, the whole thing is playing with it. Listen.
That's why I'm...
But the words are trying to represent realities, reflect a reality. So the reality is that the fact that you were able to perform a mitzvah, that is the reward. Which means the reward comes before you do the mitzvah. Which is not really the reward. The opportunity that you had to do the mitzvah, that is it. That's it. Because there is nothing else. So you should look at the ability that you have to perform a mitzvah, that you did a mitzvah. You put on your tzitzit, for example, Eric. Right? The fact that you did it, that is the reward.
Can everything in the world be a mitzvah, though? Every single thing?
Everything?
Every single thing you
No.
do could be a mitzvah.
No.
I say.
Because if you steal, it's not a mitzvah.
Well, that's wrong. But, I'm saying
But it's not a mitzvah.
it's not, but that's a wrong thing to do. I think every single thing in the world that you do from now on to the day you die could be a mitzvah.
No.
As long as you're doing the right thing.
No? Who decides what the right thing is?
Yourself.
No, chas v'shalom. That's not our view. No. We are not the arbitrators of truth. No. No. We might think,
To do a mitzvah.
what?
You brush your teeth to do a mitzvah.
Is brushing your teeth a mitzvah?
Yeah.
In what sense?
Essentially.
How so?
guarding yourself, preventing against
I'm brushing my
cavities.
teeth so I have good hygiene so I can serve God.
No, but there is a list.
But that's called, sometimes you have something that's called a hechsher mitzvah. A hechsher mitzvah is that the mitzvah, let's say, is to sit in a sukkah. Correct? So in order to sit in a sukkah, what do you have to do? Either build a sukkah or find somebody that will let you eat in their sukkah. Right? So building a sukkah is not a mitzvah unto itself. It's a hechsher mitzvah. It prepares you for being able to do the mitzvah. Not every act that you might think is a mitzvah is a mitzvah.
Is voting for the religious party a hechsher mitzvah or a mitzvah mitzvah?
They say that it's a mitzvah of listening to the sages. That the leading rabbis of the world say, you vote for this, and then you're just listening to them and doing that. Without because you believe in them. You believe that this Rav says this is what you should do, then that's what you should do. That's it. Not every action is a mitzvah. The Torah tells us what are mitzvahs and what are not. And it's not up to us. It's not arbitrary. Could you make anything a mitzvah? No. 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 Okay.
What about good deeds? They're not listening to Torah, walking an old lady across the street, opening the door for somebody.
What about
deeds?
No.
Those wouldn't be considered.
Derech Eretz. Those are Derech Eretz. And so Derech Eretz is an aspect of being a good human being.
It's not considered as a mitzvah gem.
It could be.
Could be.
It could be if it's, let's say, standing up before an old person. The Torah says you need to do that. The Torah says you have to be Derech Eretz kadma la Torah. That is, the Torah says you have to have Derech Eretz, because without Derech Eretz there's no Torah. So doing those Derech Eretz, that means that is a prerequisite to be, yeah. But let's say, for example, I would like to torture babies because it helps me feel better about myself. Is that a mitzvah? Why not? But it's helping me.
Helping you do what? Feel better about yourself? What is
Yeah. And when I feel better about myself, I thank God for it.
Because you're also committing a transgression.
Yeah, but just feeling better about yourself
So you can't perform the mitzvah.
So there's some things that are not a mitzvah, even though I think it's good for me.
I'm saying potentially things could be, but obviously to an extent, yeah.
So that's the question I'm asking. So I'm telling you the extent to which something is a mitzvah is there's a boundary of the Torah. The Torah tells you feeling good about yourself is not a mitzvah.
You shouldn't even feel good about doing a mitzvah. I feel like it's being selfish. Like, I'm just doing this to do a mitzvah. It's like kind of selfish. It's like, you know?
Why? If it's a derivative, what's the problem? I'm doing the mitzvah anyway. Right? I have to daven. Right? I'm commanded to daven. So I daven. But I enjoy davening. So does that mean that I shouldn't enjoy davening? I, put needles in my feet so that I don't really enjoy it and daven, because that way if I enjoy it, I'm not doing it because I'm doing it because it's a mitzvah. Same thing they say, if somebody says, the Gemara says, I don't eat pork because I don't like it. He says, that's not what you should say. You should say, I don't eat pork because God said, don't eat pork. That's why I'm not eating it. That's a big difference. Okay. So he says, B'safo shel davar, in the end, the fact that you converted to Judaism, your reward is being able to perform more and more mitzvahs. That's what the Gra says. Okay. Getting back to our story. He invites her to eat with him, correct? Right? Look at verse 14. So let's do 13, because we didn't do 13. So somebody read 13, please.
Excuse me, I don't understood what was the solution of the paradox that you were trying to solve. The fact that there is the reward for mitzvah is not in this world, and the reward for the mitzvah is a mitzvah.
Is the mitzvah itself that you did. That is your reward. So it's
like I'm wearing tzitzis, so that's my reward.
the reward is that God gave you the ability to wear tzitzit. Yeah. Think about the following. It's really a big. We have to be very grateful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How many Jews are there in the world?
Not many.
How many?
Well,
12, 13 million. How many actually have been able to see the beauty of Judaism?
Barely any.
Very few compared to the 13
But it's
million.
growing.
But that's a gift.
Uh-huh.
The fact that Hashem brought you closer to Him and is providing you an ability, an opportunity to learn more about what it means to be a Jew and what it means to be a Ben Torah, to learn Torah, to be part of the Torah, to have a relationship with God. That,
It's priceless.
yeah, right? It's better than MasterCard. There's lots of people who you talk to them about Torah, they look at you like, what are you talking about? They don't get it. They don't get it. It's not so simple. People have to understand. There's a lot of people who are looking for meaning in all the wrong places. You had a blessing that the Kadosh Baruch Hu brought you here. That set up, just imagine all the things had to line up for you to come to yeshiva.
For me, it was a big obstacle.
Yeah,
Huge.
yeah.
So I was supposed to come 9 months ago, then I got offered a job, and then the whole war situation came, and just one thing led to another.
I see it in my life, where I was and where I, used to be and where I am today and where, you see how sort of Hashem is saying, I have a plan for you. And you pay attention to it and you see it and you are able to have a better understanding of what's going on. And I end up being speechless because I want to thank Hashem. I just don't have the words to thank Him. And I'm appreciative and honored that He gave me the opportunity to be connected to the Torah. But it's not so simple. Not everybody has this opportunity. And it really is something that, it's a relationship between God and God has a part in it. Some people just don't get it. To tell a guy who, is hanging out, having a good time partying, you tell him, learn Rashi and Chumash. Like, what are you talking about? Rashi and Chumash. Leave me alone. It's just nonsense. Rashi. But it's amazing. The Gemara says that if you actually open and learn Rashi, it protects you from Yetzer Hara. And the crazy thing is it works. People leave the world behind them and come to yeshiva. Doesn't make any sense. It shouldn't by any means. Just think about it. What?
I got here through a series of very, very unlikely events.
Correct.
I left like a really good job opportunity.
Yeah.
Chabad, to Tabli, to Isha Torah, to Matalon here, and then finally
And you don't know where else you're going to go. Who
ping
knows?
pong ball that should have gone out in any second.
Yeah. And it's only, 40, 50, 60 years from now that you'll understand why it needed to be all these pieces. That's what he says to Ruth. You converted, you came under the Kanfei Shekhinah, the wings of the Shekhinah, of the divine presence, and God will reward you. That's the blessing. Verse 13. She responds to his blessing. Aaron?
Then she said, "May I continue to find favor in your eyes, my Lord, because you have comforted me, and because you have spoken to the heart of your maidservant, though I am not even as worthy as one of your maidservants."
Right? I'm not even one of your maidservants, and you're treating me so nicely. Right? And Nichamtani is that you made me feel so good. You comforted me because she was very worried that she's not going to be accepted. Right? She's a Moabite, she's converted, people are going to make fun of her and get out of here. She said no. And here all of a sudden, Boaz is treating her like she's one of his servants. Even better, but she's not going to say that. She's very she says, I'm not even one of your servants and you're treating me so nicely. And I would love to be your servant, that's what she says. So, he says there in verse 14.
Boaz said to her, "Come over here and partake of the bread and dip your morsel in the vinegar." So she sat beside the harvesters. He handed her parched grain, and she ate and was satisfied, and had some left over.
Okay. So Boaz, as they're talking, it's lunchtime. Right? It's lunchtime. So what happens?
She ate with them.
Boaz sits down in one table with his workers. The Malbim reminds us the halacha, the rule is that if you are a worker being paid by the hour, then it used to be that Birkat HaMazon, right, the blessing after the meal, you only make the first 2 brachas because you got to get back to work. But if the owner is sitting down with you, you say the whole Birkat HaMazon. And here Boaz is going to sit with them, so they all say the whole Birkat HaMazon. And so he invites her to sit. He sits at the head of the table, and then the workers, and he invites her to sit next to him, right at the head of the table. And what does she do?
Then she keep reading 15.
She doesn't sit there. No, it tells us. We already read it. Vateshev mitzad hakotzrim. She sat alongside the harvesters. He invites her, sit over here. She says, no, sit. He's the big owner of the field.
So he's not sitting with the harvesters?
He's like on a higher head of the table, and they're this, and she's sitting over there. Now, what else is going on? He gives her a full loaf of bread. Why is he giving her a full loaf of bread? Can you eat a full loaf of bread if I gave it to you? She has extra. Because he knows that she's going to take it home to feed her mother-in-law, Naomi. So he gives her, because he says, and you can eat from the bread. He gives her a whole one. And she dips it in the vinegar, right? And she sits, and then he gives her dessert. Right? What does he give her in the end? What?
Parched grain.
Parched grain. It's like, like a fried, parched, you put on the, supposed to taste sweet. And it's like, and he gives her a little bit. He says, here. And she eats a little, and she saves that also. Then she gets up, and what does she continue to do? Just read.
Then she got up to glean, and Boaz ordered his young men, saying, "Let her glean even among the sheaves. Do not embarrass her.
Keep going.
And even deliberately pull out some for her from the heaps and leave them for her to glean. Don't rebuke her."
Okay, so he's saying, listen, guys, I want you guys, as we say in slang in America, hook her up. But I don't want her to know that you're doing it.
So she doesn't get embarrassed.
Correct. Just leave stuff behind. Right? So he's really saying, pretend that you're forgetting, because you can't command somebody to forget. Right? It's always, if you have a friend that wants to tell you something, I got something to tell you. You say, what? He said, forget about it. I said, I can't. I said, what do you mean? Just forget about it. You have to tell, in order for me to forget, you have to tell me what it is, and then I have to forget. But if you don't tell me, I can't forget it. They get mad when you
So much.
forget about it.
Forget about it.
Forget about it. Don't worry.
Donnie Baskin.
Forget about it.
Forget about it.
You're from Brooklyn. You speak like that, don't you? You let it fly. Forget about it. All right.
So she gleaned in the field until evening, and she beat out what she had gleaned. It came to about an ephah of barley.
Which is a lot. That's a lot. Okay.
So does that mean they overdid it, or that's the amount that he had intended?
No, they did what he didn't get. It's a big field. It's a huge field.
That's what I'm saying.
He's got people going around. So how much could she collect? I mean, she's not going to be able to carry like 2 tons. Do you know what I mean? So next, keep going.
Separated and came to the city. Her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned, and she took out and gave her what she had left over after eating her fill.
Right. So she gave her the food that she had for lunch. She said, "Here's I have left," and she sees like she has this huge amount of grain that is not the typical amount that somebody who goes out to collect would bring in one day. Most people won't bring that much. So,
Where did you glean today? Her mother-in-law asked her. Where did you work? May the one that took such generous notice of you be blessed. So she told her mother-in-law whom she had worked by, and said, the name of the man by whom I worked today is Boaz.
yeah, so the Malbim says she was wondering, like, how did you collect all of this? How is this? How did that work? And you have food. Like you have, you went out. It's not like you can stop at the, In-N-Out Burger, the kosher one though, and bring some bagels. I know In-N-Out Burger doesn't have bagels, but I love mixed metaphors. So she comes home with food, and there's no like a takeout place, back then. And she has a lot. She's like, well, where did you get all this? Where did she get all this? And she says, you must have done something for a person, right, that fed you. Because people who usually glean from a field are not fed. So, what's going on? What happened? She doesn't think that her daughter did something inappropriately. That I don't want you to think about. That's not what's going on. She's just wondering what happened. And it's clearly to her that whoever did this is a man of great chesed. Is a man who does acts of loving kindness. That is doing things to help her. There's a great Ibn Ezra on the verse that she came home with Ke'efa Seorim, Ephah of grain. And Ibn Ezra says that one time a person asked him, what does this mean? And I said, there's no real, your question is like, it's not a real question. What do you mean that wasn't mean? And he says, and he realized that the guy wants to say like all these things. So he says, I kept silent and I let him speak. And he says this and this and this and this. And he records like, oh, he gave me this and this and like, I didn't even bother replying to him. But he writes down all the things that it means. It's a very interesting like little comment. Okay. So here we go. Verse 19. Continue. She told her mother-in-law what?
Where did you glean today? Her mother-in-law asked her. Where did you work?
I know, but I wanted to keep doing.
May the one took such generous notice of you be blessed.
Good.
So she told her mother-in-law whom she worked by and said, the name of the man by whom I work today is Boaz.
Right. So she told her mother-in-law the whole story. And then she said, because of the chesed that I did for you, and because I converted, I found favor in his eyes. That's the Malbim. Therefore he fed me, and he helped me. And she says, and the man is called Boaz. 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 Okay, keep going.
Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, blessed be he of Hashem, for not failing in his kindness to the living or to the dead. The man is closely related to us. Naomi then said to her, he is one of our redeeming kinsmen.
Okay. What does it mean that he provides for the living and the dead? What is she talking about? What dead are we talking about here? How is he providing for the dead?
Because, so the brother has to marry the wife, so that the wife has a chance to continue the line of the person that died. And so anybody who gives the wife a chance is helping the dead husband's line be continued.
Okay. Anybody else?
She'd be dead without the food.
Well, Rashi says because he feeds and takes care of those who are living and takes care of the needs of the dead. That's what Rashi says. The Malbim explains the following. The Naomi first gives them a bracha because he provided for them food in an honorable way. He's doing it in a way that is very honorable. They're not embarrassed. They're not, right? He provided food for them. He provided the grains that they could sell, whatever it is. And he's doing it in an honorable way. So that's for the living. The dead is you were mechaven to the Malbim. The Malbim says, Naomi understood that he is also going to do a chesed with the dead people. By marrying Ruth, he's going to do a chesed to the soul of the departed. And he says he's going to do it because he is going to redeem us. That's what the Malbim understands. So, like you said, very good. Very good. Next. Vámonos. Let's keep going.
And Ruth, the Moabite, said, "What's more?" He even said to me, "Stay close to my workers until they have finished all my harvest." Naomi said to her daughter-in-law Ruth, "It's fine, my daughter, that you go out with this young woman so that you will not be annoyed in another field."
Okay. So, verse 21. Does verse 21 follow from verse 20? 20, Naomi says what? He is our Redeemer, right?
He's a redeeming kinsman.
And what does Ruth say?
Don't do what he said.
No. He also told me not that the guys are not going to bother me.
They go together.
Look again what he says. Read the English again of 21.
And Ruth, the Moabite, said, "What's more?" He even said to me, "Stay close to my workers until they have finished all my harvest."
Yeah. Stay close to my workers because they're going to finish the harvest. Fine, glean after them when you go. But what did Naomi end with?
It's fine, my daughter, that you go out with his young women so that you will not be.
No, we're 20. Don't go to 22.
That's 21.
He's a redeeming kinsman.
What's 20?
Redeemer.
20 ends with, she says, wow, he's a great guy, he's doing this, and he's part of our, he's going to be the Redeemer. She says, yeah, he's so great that he even said for me to stick around with his workers. The Malbim says, like Ruth didn't understand what Naomi was talking about. Naomi's like going, Naomi says, took care of you. He's probably going to be to redeem us. You're going to marry, and she is continuing as if like she didn't understand what that meant. She's like, not only that, he also told me to stick around with my workers, with his workers. So the Malbim then says that Ruth didn't understand what Naomi was saying. Ruth lo hevina inyan yibum. She didn't understand what yibum means. That a marriage. She just knows that he's a relative. And she's like, yeah, he's such a great relative that he told me not to worry, I could just come and glean from his field. Stick around with the workers. But Naomi is already saying, no, I don't want you around the boys. I don't want you around the boys. You stick around with the girls. Because I want Boaz to marry you. But she's like that. So he explains. She said, he told me to stick with the boys. And he really said that. Right? And for her, Moabite culture, there is no, that the girls and the boys hang out together. That's what the Malbim says. She didn't, when Boaz told her, stick with the workers, he meant that go with the boys and the girls would stick with the girls. But she said, I'll just go with the guys. It's not an issue because she's a Moabite. But here, she didn't think about this. So Naomi is the one that explains it. She says, no, you stay only with the girls, not with the boys. She says, no, you go not with his sons. Why? And don't go any other field. Why don't you go to any other field? So that somebody is not going to suspect you of hanky-panky. We don't want any suspicions. stick with the girls, same field, there's lots of work to be done. Okay, so what do we see?
So she stayed close to Boaz's young women to glean until the end of the barley harvest and of the wheat harvest. And then she stayed at home with her mother-in-law.
She would go to work, come back. Go to work, come back. Good girl. That's the kind of girl you want to marry. Okay, so, Gimel. Chapter 3.
Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, "My daughter, I must seek security for you that it may go well with you. Now Boaz, our relative, with whose maidens you have been, will be winnowing barley tonight on the threshing floor. Therefore, bathe and anoint yourself, don your finery, and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. And when he lies down, note the place where he lies, and go over, uncover his feet, and lie down. He will tell you what you are to do." She replied, "All that you say to me, I will do."
Does that sound like a Torah thing to do?
Kind of aggressive.
Is there any prophecy involved?
It's not a prophecy. She just tells him, this is what I want you to do. Get dressed, go there at night, and do what he tells you to do. Lay next to him and do what he tells you to do.
But he didn't request that.
Correct?
So why be so aggressive with it? What happens if he doesn't like that?
Doesn't like what?
That whole
What is she doing?
taking off uncovering his feet. Maybe he wants his feet to be covered.
What does that mean?
Covering his feet.
Yeah, what is that? What is going on here?
He's kicking back.
He's kicking back. What does that mean?
He's going to bed.
Yeah, he's going to sleep. And all of a sudden,
She comes out. And lays
okay,
But uncovering
This
his
is-
feet is a strange way of saying that.
yeah.
There's a lot of strange things in here.
Okay, good. I always want to end the class with a cliffhanger.
What?
The point I'm going to tell you is that if you read the verses, something is very disturbing happening. Because we cannot think that according to the Torah, we're allowed to send a young woman to be alone with another man she's not married to at night and dressed and undressed and remove clothing and not remove clothing. That certainly is not allowed according to the Torah. And what is going on here? That's what we're going to talk about tomorrow, Be'ezrat Hashem.